So moving along, I would like to welcome John Beck back again. This time, John is going to speak on Adapt and Grow on Data Analytics and IHM from eGenie 1.0 to 4.0. A little bit more about John before he talks about his topic. John, not only is the president of the eGenie Forum, but he is also the vice president of procurement for Wilhelmsen Ship Management and has more than 30 years of experience in procurement. And John is focused on harnessing technology to automate the transactional tasks within procurement and supply chain. So without much further ado, John, please.
Thank you, Danny. Well, I've been very heartened by the words that Kenneth and Chung-Ming spoke about being able to share data and the importance of not having to rekey data. So some common themes coming there, I think. And what I'd like to do this afternoon is just run you through some of the experience that we've had within Wilhelmsen Ship Management on using the data that we have available to us. So Joyce, if you could maybe move to the go one back actually, Joyce, sorry. One back. That's okay, good. Just leave it on that one. Anyway, so data, the devil really is in the detail. But today, in many ways, we are overwhelmed with data. There's just so much of it around. I made the mistake in hindsight of asking for the material master data list for our ERP system shortly after I joined Wilhelmsen Ship Management. And the quantities of data that were in that master list were actually too big for a spreadsheet. So then I thought, well, where are we going to start? And we are really not so different to others. A lot of data is available, huge quantities of it, but not so structured. And I know that in talking with Peter from Toma, that ship managers can often see 40% plus of their PO line items can be free text items. So when you factor in that most stores and consumable items make up 50% of PO line items, but represent only a small percentage of the overall spend, then you can really see that the tail is wagging the dog. So getting a grip on data, getting in some form of order that we can use it is actually a real priority. So we've been, sorry, Joyce, can you just go one slide back? That's it, yeah, okay. So we've been working on data cleanup at WSM for some time. And to start with, we saw it as a real necessity. We wanted to move away from doing 3 quotes every time for stores and consumables in those ports where we frequently replenish our ROB. And we recognized that moving from 11 suppliers in Singapore to 2 preferred suppliers would give us significant pricing leverage, and it has. But we've also found that this exercise has actually significant additional spin-offs. So I'm just going to talk you through 1 or 2 of those this afternoon. So next slide, Joyce. In May 2019, our CEO made a bold statement, and he said that WSM were to take the lead in reducing plastics consumption on board vessels under our management. And most of those plastics, if not all, come through my team here. They're procured. So sustainability has become a big theme for us. And we also are conscious many ships are owned by institutional investors, investment trusts of one form or another, and they are now taking into account sustainability when assessing investment opportunities. So very soon it will no longer be good enough to have a statement from your CEO. You'll actually need to back it up with data and also be prepared to be audited on that data. So we launched a plastics initiative, and we looked at what was driving our data consumption on board. And we found that a large part was done was through plastic water bottles, also plastic chemical drums and stretch wrap used on pallets for deliveries to vessels. So we've since gone on to produce KPIs. If you can measure it, you can certainly manage it. So I'm just showing you some snippets of some of our KPIs. But we're able to now take the consumption of plastic water bottles down to a per vessel basis, and then we're able to talk to the vessels about that and also talk to the vessel managers about that. changing behaviour is about influencing hearts and minds, and influencing hearts and minds is actually in many cases using facts. So we're using campaigns based on the facts to win the support of our crew. And like many others in the industry, we've now issued every member of crew with a stainless steel drinking flask, and we're also able to use the data that we have on that to plan the logistics for that. And we're starting to see from that graph, you'll see that we're seeing a significant reduction in the consumption of bottled water. Next slide, please, Joyce. Other way. Yeah, okay. So refrigerants are another area that we decided to have a look at because the greenhouse warming potential of refrigerants is very significant. I guess you all know that they're a major contributor to greenhouse gases, but if you take R404A, for example, the multiplication factor is a multiple of 3,922. And even for more green refrigerants, the multiplication factor is still very high. So again, we're able to take the data that's available to us and look at the consumption of refrigerants down to the vessel level. And this is important from an environmental point of view, because if you're using too much refrigerants, then you're obviously topping up a system that could well be leaking. But it's also a significant cost. So it's important from an environmental point of view, but it's also important from an operational cost as well. Next slide, please, Joyce. So IHM and EUSRR, the new regulation is just around the corner. Last year we had low sulfur fuels. This year we've got the EU ship recycling regulations. And I'm sure you all know that they come into force, excuse me, on the 1st of January 2021. All EU flagged vessels and those calling EU ports will have to comply. You will see port state inspections that will ask to look at the inventory of hazardous materials on board. Many of you will have done the shipboard audits, we have as well. But procurement are now going to have a big part to play to ensure that the inventories on board are maintained. So we issue, as Wilhelmsen Ship Management, around about 50,000 POs per year. So where on earth do we start? We've got more than 180 vessels under management. So it's a major administrative exercise potentially for the operational teams. So also with more than 50% or at least 50%, the graph that shows you there, the kind of pinky bar is the number of consumable items out of all of the PO line items. So you can see that 50% of all PO line items are stores and consumables. So this has got the potential to be a major task without some form of automation. Next slide, please, Joyce. So what has data got to contribute? Well, we know we've got to provide material declarations, and we know that we have to provide supplier declarations of conformity. So that's the easy part. But what we don't want to do, and our suppliers don't want us to do this, is to ask for these things multiple times. And that would be the easy way of doing it. Just every PO, give us these pieces of documentation. But then that brings with it in itself a major exercise in terms of filing those and all of that good stuff. So we want to use automation to take the PO line item data to identify the suppliers and ask for that information once and once only. And that will be a benefit to us because we'll then be able to capture that information, use automation to store it and file it, but only ask for the information once and once only. And those tools are available in Office 365 today, for those of you who subscribe to Office 365 through SharePoint and Power Automation and Flow. So that should be a good way of taking the data that we have, which in most cases now is much cleaner than it used to be, and use that data to set up good high quality databases to store the data that we need to support the inventories on board the vessel. Next slide, please, Joyce. So, improving data quality is much more than consolidation of procurement volume, purchase volumes. And after 35 years in procurement, reducing costs is no less of a priority to me. But there are many good things that we can get from this whole data management exercise. And the idea, I think, in the industry that the the buyer's poor quality data can allow suppliers to gain a competitive edge will become less important as time goes on. That's not to say that it's not still important today, but I think as data quality improves, that will be less of an issue. So I would encourage everybody to really get involved in structuring data, making sure that data is commonly understood between us, so that we can focus on much better projects that add an awful lot more value, getting the quality of the goods required right first time, making sure that the units of measure are correct. Where suppliers have, where purchasers have a brand requirement, we have to make sure that we get the brand correct. So the industry is going to benefit from improvements in data quality, and Peter's going to talk a bit about that later. Please don't view it as a threat. Manual transactional tasks will become automated. The train is coming into the station and it's not going to stop. So make sure, don't fight it, join the movement. Good quality data will allow all of us more of a control tower approach to our supply chains, and purchasers will see less firefighting and more problem solving. So that's my contribution for this afternoon. Thank you, Danny.